The Case of the Vanishing Golden Frogs, a Scientific Mystery by Sandra Markle. It's a mystery. High in the mountain forest, close to El Valle de Antoine, Panama, frog researcher Edgardo Griffith finds something exciting. It's a Panamanian golden frog. In the mid-1990s, finding a golden frog in this forest would have been nothing unusual. In fact, the forest was so full of all kinds of frogs, it was noisy with frog voices. However, the world has changed, at least as far as being a safe place for frogs. Everywhere, different kinds of frogs are dying. They're becoming extinct or gone forever. It's sad to lose animals from the world, but the decreasing number of frogs causes another big problem. Frogs eat lots of insects. Some of these insects are pests that spread diseases and damage crops that people and animals need for food. And in Panama, the golden frog is treasured. Just as the bald eagle is the symbol of the United States, the golden frog is one of Panama's national symbols. Golden frogs have always been important in Panama. In ancient times, people created golden statues of the frogs to bury with their dead. They believed the frogs would give their loved ones good luck in the afterlife. Modern Panamanians still keep statues of golden frogs in their homes for good luck. They don't want their national symbol to disappear forever. Scientists first realized that golden frogs were vanishing in 1996. That year, biologist Karen Lips went to Panama. She visited the cool, misty high mountain forest of Fortuna Forest Reserve in Chiriquí province. She had been studying the frogs living there. When Lips visited that area for the first time in 1992, the forest was full of many kinds of frogs. Each time Lips took a step, frogs hopped out of her way. When she returned in 1996, the forest seemed quiet. She heard few frog voices. Worse, when Lips started researching for the frogs, most of the ones she found were dead. She collected the bodies and soon had 50 of them. Finding so many dead frogs was surprising. In the damp forest, a dead frog quickly decomposes, which means to rot and break down. Or it's eaten by other animals, such as wasps. So finding lots of dead frogs meant that the frogs must have died very recently. The deaths reminded Lips of what happened a few years earlier, just 60 miles, 100 kilometers, to the west. There in Las Tablas, Costa Rica, she discovered 7 dead frogs. She hadn't thought much of that then, but when she returned to Las Tablas a year later, she found no frogs at all. Lips sent the dead frogs to a pathologist, somebody who studies diseases and their causes. An exam of the frog's skin under a microscope showed some strange-looking round sacs. The pathologist couldn't identify the sacs, but, he reported, they weren't anything known to kill frogs. At that moment, Lips's career changed. Instead of studying the lives of different kinds of frogs, she focused on trying to find out what could be killing them. One of the frogs she focused on was the Panamanian golden frog. Could the frogs be dying because a part of their habitat, the place where they live, had been damaged? Frogs, like all animals, need food, shelter, and a safe place to raise their young. A change to any of these things can lead to an animal becoming extinct. Golden frogs live in Panama's cool, misty rainforest. Lips needed to figure out whether something in the frog's habitat had changed. She'd seen rainforests being cleared in other places. The forest at Fortuna was untouched, though. It was too far from big cities for most people to visit, so the frog's death couldn't be due to a change in their habitat. Panama's golden frogs belong to a group of animals called amphibians. That means leading 2 lives. The adults and young, called tadpoles, live different lives. Adult golden frogs live on land. They breathe air through their lungs and eat insects such as ants, springtails, and termites. They need a habitat that has a temperature of 68 degrees to 73 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees to 23 degrees Celsius. It needs to be shady and misty with high humidity. The frogs also need to be close to fast-flowing streams so they can lay their eggs. Tadpoles hatch from eggs and live in the water. The water must be clean and fast-flowing. It must also be just the right temperature, 69 degrees to 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees to 22 degrees Celsius. Golden frog tadpoles breathe through their gills just as fish do. They have suction discs on the bottom of their heads. They use the discs to hold on to rocks. The tadpoles eat diatoms that live on the rocks. Diatoms are microscopic plant-like living things that lack roots, stems, and leaves. The tadpoles' mouths are lined with tough, bumpy plates to scrape the diatoms off the rocks. Could pollution be the killer? Lips wondered if pollution could be killing the frogs. Air or water pollution can hurt animals and even cause them to become extinct. But the forest at Fortuna was high in the mountains. Water only drained downhill from there. Polluted water flowing in from somewhere else couldn't be the problem. Fortuna was also far away from many factories. It wasn't likely that winds were carrying chemical pollutants into the forest. Pollution of the water or air wasn't the problem. Climate is a region's average weather over a long time. Scientists have observed Earth's average temperatures rising in the last 100 years. Rainfall patterns have changed as well. If the temperature of Panama's forest were getting warmer, it could become too warm for some kinds of frogs, like the golden frogs, or it could become too dry for the frogs to survive. Lips measured the temperature and humidity. Conditions in the forest were exactly the same as when the frogs were alive and healthy. She ruled out climate change as the problem. What else could be killing the frogs? Next, Lips looked closely at the dead frogs she found. She wanted to see if their bodies had anything in common. Most of them had patches of peeling skin. All frogs shed and replaced their skin from time to time. But this was more peeling than normal. Lips knew how important a frog's skin is to its health. Maybe that was killing them. She sent a number of the dead frogs she collected to another pathologist. He took samples of each frog's skin. He looked at them through a microscope. Once again, the pathologist saw strange sacs. All adult frogs depend on their skin to keep them healthy. Frogs' outer skin cells contain keratin, a tough waterproofing chemical. It stops more organisms that could get into a frog's body and make it sick. It also keeps the right water balance inside the frog's body. A frog doesn't usually drink water through its mouth. It gets what it needs through its skin. A frog's skin also helps it get all the oxygen it needs. An adult frog takes in most of the oxygen its body needs from its lungs. But especially when it is underwater, a frog also takes in some oxygen through its skin. This oxygen goes directly into its blood. This is the end of part 1. Once we're ready, we'll make sure that we're able to see part 2 and the conclusion of this book.